March is Women's History Month, and here at Paladin and PalAmerican Security, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of amazing women being the difference makers in the industry. They've created new initiatives, broken barriers, and even saved lives throughout their careers. I'm joined by three of them today for a roundtable discussion where we'll touch on everything from their careers to how they found success in a male-dominated industry. My name is Christina Heydanus, and I'm a communications specialist with Paladin. And here with me is Simran Gill, Manager of Operational Excellence also with Paladin, Anjanette Hebert, Vice President of Healthcare with PalAmerican, and Heather Beasley, Director of Operations with PalAmerican as well. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks
for
having
us.
Well, let's start with how each of you got into the security industry and what kind of tasks you handle in your current role. Anjanette, let's start with you.
Okay, so mine goes back really far now. I started in the industry, actually, my very first security job was working in a department store, an anchor store in a mall, catching shoplifters. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite job. I went from there to being a real life private investigator. And I remind people it was nothing like Magnum PI at all. It was a lot of long hours in a dark van, all by yourself, just observing. But it teaches you a lot, about life and about people, and which was a really great segue into healthcare security, which is where I found myself next. And so I started in healthcare security actually as a security officer in a hospital on the night shift. Wow. And talk about a learning experience. Everything that happens in a community happens inside a hospital. Yeah. And the security department kind of becomes a little miniature police department, social workers, and public relations and everything else, all wrapped into one. So it was a really great education, and I was very fortunate. I stayed with that organization for 28 years. Wow. And I left there as the director of security. We had several satellite hospitals that had, come on as part of our system. And, we'd just grown our program and grown our hospital tremendously. And it just gave me a platform to learn so much. Yeah. And when I decided to leave that job, I went out on my own for a little while, did a little bit of consulting, and an opportunity with PalAmerican, came available to me. And I had known of Paladin for a long time, and had been really impressed with the direction of Paladin, a little bit different than I had seen in the industry. Mm-hmm. I really have a foundational belief in that PalAmerican difference. I live it every day. Yeah. And so I was very excited to have that opportunity with PalAmerican. I became the Director of Security, Director of Healthcare first, and now as the Vice President of Healthcare. I mean, it's a 3-year ride so far, and it's been great. I kind of hope to see it last as long as my last one. Maybe I can make 30 years here.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
It's been great. One of, my primary focus is on the healthcare programs, in the hospitals that we secure across the country. And within that is my passion is the training. Mm-hmm. So it's incredibly important to me that our security officers are well trained so that they are not injured, and our patients that we're responsible for are not injured, and everyone feels respected, in that environment. And that's sometimes a really difficult balance, in a hospital, to balance the patient feeling respected, the staff feeling respected, and the security officers not being hurt. Yeah. And so the training is important, and that's a really a driving force for me, is to continue to drive improvement in our training programs.
For sure. It's good to hear. Heather, what about you?
So I'm fairly new to the private sector, just a little less than a year. I actually came from the public sector. I spent almost 13 years in corrections and local county jails, and I absolutely adored it. It's not very often you can say I went to jail and I loved it, but I did. I had an amazing time. I promoted very quickly. I realized once I started in corrections, I did want to move up and promote, and I did. And as I went through the ranks, I actually became the jail commander of a local county jail. And it was a great experience, and I loved that aspect. And I in my career, I just always, I like to make changes. I like to make improvements. And, I realized that I could make a change on the private sector as well. And unless I wanted to go into politics and run for sheriff, which I do not, I was going to have to try something different. So I moved over here just last year to the private sector, and it's been incredible. I actually didn't know as much that private sector was so vast. Being in public safety, you know, I know what we do and how big the law enforcement claws go. I didn't realize how big the private sector claws go, and it's really just been eye-opening and amazing how much impact you actually have on the community. I didn't realize that coming from public safety. I didn't realize a private sector could actually have such an impact on the community, and it's just been a great experience. I'm the director of operations right now, and just watching my officers do, you know, it's so similar to the public sector. You know, they're dedicated, they're trained, they, you know, they're willing to work with one another. It's a great team. You know, I'm big on team concept.
Yeah.
I was on my first team when I was 5 years old on a basketball team. And I just, that team concept and taking care of one another, your brothers, your sisters, it's just such a great camaraderie. And, you know, so I'm looking forward, you know, I'm hoping I can get 30 plus like Anjanette in this sector as well. So I'm super excited about PalAmerican in the United States, Paladin across the world. You know, we have a lot of room to grow, and I'm excited to be part of that.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Simran? How did you get into the security industry?
So the field that I started off in is very different. So I actually came from finance, and I was in finance for about 7 years, and I absolutely loved it. However, it got to a point where I realized that I wanted to make changes and I wanted to implement certain processes and whatnot. But when you're working with such a big corporation, it's very difficult to make your voice heard. So after about 7 years, I not necessarily that I didn't like finance, but I wanted to get into a company specifically, regardless of industry, to kind of find something that I found I could actually make a difference. And I was just so happening to be researching Paladin. I had read something about like a Paladin acquiring Concord Security at the time, and that kind of like just really interested me right away, because I'm like, you know what, it's something, it's new, it's fast, it's exciting. I want to get involved in something and like that. And obviously for a company that's based out of my hometown as a head office was really exciting for me as well. So I had ended up applying. Operations has been kind of my forte for the past, you know, since my like early 20s. And I really, really enjoyed the fact that when I came in, I got a tour of the office, and I got to hear more about like Ashley and how exactly the company came to fruition, and how much they've expanded. So I got the opportunity to kind of be hired into the position to kind of manage the operations, starting from a really difficult and huge acquisition to where we are right now. And the one thing I really enjoy about security is, again, you can't do it by yourself. It is completely a team effort. It requires, you know, involvement from so many different departments. And the one thing I really love that I've gotten the opportunity to do is be able to kind of be in that type of position where I have so much communication with every single department within our office, and trying to be able to bring people together and understand how can we make our company grow and prosper in the way that we've kind of been told the vision is. And I find that everything that we do very much aligns with the vision that's put into place by our executive team and our corporate team. So definitely security was not the industry that I thought I was going to get into, but once I got into it, I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. I love the camaraderie, just had Heather was saying. I love the teamwork, the ability for our corporate team to kind of listen to each of the individuals who are actually out on the field and be able to kind of take their word and be able to kind of implement things. And that's why I think what really increases and really just brings out our corporate culture and makes our company so much more different than everybody else. So.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And all of you guys have touched on it, that you want to make a difference, and you've been part of some huge initiatives and acquisitions and all that kind of stuff. So I guess what I'm wondering is, when you are heading this up, do you get different reaction from people in the industry because you are a woman and that you're being able to handle this big job, or is it kind of the same as what it'd be for any other job? I don't know who wants to take a crack at that one.
I'll go.
Okay.
So I think I'm the oldest one of the group. I've been doing this a really long time. And
Yeah.
so in the beginning of my career, things were very different. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. Okay. So the world has changed. People view all of us differently now, and what it means to be respectful of different people in the workplace. So just keep that into context, that my experience early in my career is very different than maybe Simran's is.
Right.
You know, so when I started working in security, I mean, I was a child. I was 23 years old, probably weighed 100 pounds soaking wet. And then I was a girl, you know, so I got a lot of, and even as I became the supervisor, you know, in a hospital, we would often get calls from nurses, women nurses. Can you send me 2 guys up here? You know, they were specific about what kind of security they thought they needed. And so the biggest challenge there was to make people understand, particularly in a healthcare setting, because that's where my expertise is, that you don't necessarily want the brawn. That's not I kind of used an analogy often over time with the clinical staff, is that you need to allow us to diagnose the situation and apply the right treatment, you know. And so if I come in, I can have the same, you know, similar symptoms, but you may diagnose it as appendicitis or something else, you know, based on your expertise. So please give us the opportunity to do that. And if I need brawn, then, you know, we can do that. But a lot of times what you need is finesse in order to calm the situation and not escalate the situation. So that was the biggest challenge, I think, for me, in that when I first started in the industry, security was just assumed to be a big man job, you know, something that required strength and brute force to do, even from people in a hospital, you know. And, you know, hospitals are highly regulated, and the way in which you can interact with patients is very, very regulated. And so what would be appropriate in a bar is not appropriate in a hospital, even though the behavior may be exact. Right. You know, and so you have to know the difference. And you have to also sometimes educate the people who want you to do the thing, to say, yeah, I understand what you want, but what you want is not only not appropriate, but it's not regulatorily allowed in this setting for us to do it that way. And so that was difficult when it was just, well, we want a boy, you know, we want a man, we need muscle or whatever. And then as I progressed through my career, and, you know, got in a position of management where now I'm going into a room, let's say, to meet with people in the organization. I'm not clinical, you know, so I'm doing support type work. And oftentimes the people I'm meeting with are facilities people, architects, you know, that kind of stuff, because that's the group of people that we're interacting with. Now, don't get me wrong, we met with the nurses too, but then on the other side, you know, here we are. And it's like, I got to have a sense about it, that in that first meeting, I know if this man sees me as a woman who doesn't belong here or as a colleague. And, you know, you learn to maneuver that. In the beginning, I wanted to force it. That doesn't work, you know, so it's like, it doesn't matter to me. As long as we can get the job accomplished, I'm going to talk to whoever's going to hear me. You know, I'm not going to keep talking to the one that's not going to hear me because he doesn't acknowledge me. You know, that's your loss. And so, you know, you find your way. You have to find your way around it and figure out who's going to be your conduit to be able to accomplish the job that you're there to do. I can't let somebody stop me or use that as an excuse. That's just a whine to me. Well, you know, he doesn't like me because I'm a girl. Well, that can't be an excuse. I have to figure out how to get past that obstacle. And so that's what I've learned to do over time. And so instead of wasting my time trying to convince this person that as a woman I belong here, I'm just going to learn to work around that obstacle. And that's what's worked for me.
I love that. That's such a good point. And Heather, I imagine that you've probably come into like encountered situations like that as well, being in corrections and even, you know, you were on the show 60 Days In, undercover in a prison. So like, tell me a little bit about having to figure that out too for yourself.
Yeah, so actually, a lot of what Anjanette said is exactly correct. You will come across those who, you know, they'll look at your expertise, your experience, your resume, and they will realize, okay, you know what you're talking about. And then there's those that, you know, you come in, you're a female, and it does not matter what you talk about. And you know, it's kind of funny if you have interactions with people kind of before they really know you're female. And I know that sounds weird, but for example, if someone is email, right? Email, or if someone's just saying my boss or my captain, and they're not using pronouns or names, or they're just using last names. It's kind of funny because that's where I've run into it. You know, I was Captain Beasley, you know, I was Lieutenant Beasley, and people, oh, that person knows what they're doing. Well, then they meet me and I'm a female, and it's more like, oh, wait a minute, this is a female in a very male dominated type of industry who knows what she's doing. So I had mostly that. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I had you know, experiences where, you know, you talk about the show that I was on. I mean, my goodness, that was a horrific, and in my eyes, illegal facility that I tried to help, that I gave suggestions to. And I feel very comfortable and confident saying, because I was a female, it did not, the sheriff and the chief there they didn't want to hear me. They actually wanted me to shut up. Wow. I didn't know what I was talking about when I actually lived inside the facility and ran a facility. So I very much knew what I was talking about. But you know, it's you have both sides, and you know, fortunately, I do believe most of it's positive. If anything, it's a positive kind of awe. Right. And I like that. And you know, Anjanette, like you said, you will get those ones that you run into, and that's where I kind of go into team mode, competitive mode. I'm very, very competitive. So I will just prove them wrong. You know, I will make them look silly for not knowing that I know what I'm talking about, and I don't even have to say a word. And so I kind of take it a little bit as a challenge when I run into those people that, you know, I know my stuff. I don't need to prove it to you. You're going to see it in the end. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's very empowering, because it's the way, you know, you come into a male dominated industry, and it's just like, you don't want to step on any toes or, you know, ruffle any feathers. But at the end of the day, it's like, you got to get your work done, and you got to find a way to get it done. And that's one thing, Simran, I wanted to ask you, is that there is a gap for women that are in the security industry. Why do you think so many females maybe are overlooking a career in this kind of industry?
I personally think it's kind of what we had already kind of spoken about is you want to make sure that whatever industry that you're working in, that your voice is heard. And so that was actually one of my concerns first when I first started, because one, I was new to the industry, and second, I was a female. And so I remember my first day at Paladin, and I walked in and it was a huge operations meeting, and I was the only female in a room of 25 men. And I walked in there and thinking, oh my God, like, what did I get myself into? However, it literally lasted a few seconds, and I just kind of went in there and I just kind of started listening to every single, you know, account manager, director, or VP, and exactly what was going on in their world, and really just took the opportunity to learn and see what value could I provide that they know that they currently don't have. And so I just kind of observe and see where exactly I learn by listening to other people and their experiences. And I took all those experiences and I I think I kind of almost surprised them at the end, because I knew what I was talking about, but I let them kind of make their judgments, and then, you know, them thinking she doesn't really know what she's going to be talking about, so we'll just see what she has to say. And I kind of started and I went on a roll, and operations is, again, something that I'm very, very passionate about, regardless of industry. And one thing that I think really benefited was the fact that I was coming in here from a different industry, providing a different lens to the entire situation, not making it industry specific, but just kind of taking an overall look at what they currently do, taking the industry out of it, taking security out of it, and then also allowing them to understand that there's so many other things that we have to be cognizant about. We have our current operations, we have all this, but I brought a different lens to employee care and the ability to connect with people, which has made me a very top performer in that kind of segment of our business, which sometimes gets overlooked. So I think that overall, yes, there was a certain intimidation, and I think that a lot of females would be intimidated. I feel like a lot of our officers that I interview that are coming into the business also do tend to ask me, they're like, will we be respected? Will we be, if I go up to a client and I have an interview, are they going to disregard me because I'm a smaller female and I might not look like I have the physical ability to take down a person? But honestly, that has nothing to do with it. And I think Paladin itself has done such a great job at empowering women, providing the opportunities for women to get into leadership. They really promote diversity, inclusion, and all of that. So I think that yes, there is going to be the initial hesitation to get into the industry, but I think that once we get into there, we realize that we provide so much more than what people would have thought initially. Yeah.
And Paladin and PalAmerican have done such a good job of like you said, Simran, making it inclusive and accepting diversity and promoting it. And what do you think needs to be done? This could be to anybody. What do you think needs to be done to continue to encourage women to get into industries that are more male dominated?
I can answer that. So like, I think that currently just even going out into the community, I know that with our current situation with COVID, it's not as easy, but even with social media, doing segments like this or allowing, some of our female members to go out into the public and to do job hiring fairs and kind of share our experiences would be the best opportunity for us to bring in more females into the industry. If that would probably be the easiest thing, is just sharing experiences just like we're doing today.
For sure.
Do you guys, I agree.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Anjanette. Yeah.
If I could just piggyback on that, because I'm gonna borrow from Disney right now. Okay. So Disney's been on this kick in the last, since my kids started watching Disney, where it's like this inclusion thing. Why were all the movies about princesses who were all the same?
Right.
And so now they got on this inclusion kick. And that's really important to me. It was important to me that my daughter didn't see the princess just as some frail little damsel that needed to be rescued. Yeah. But that she saw the Pocahontas and the brave warriors that came in later Disney things. But I think the security industry suffers from the same thing. As I look at imagery that's put out there, and I love my company, PalAmerican is very inclusive, Paladin is very inclusive, but I still see in our own imagery, it's mostly men. Yeah. That we see in our own marketing materials, and oftentimes, I'm the voice that's saying, well, can we have a different picture in here? There's some girls in it, yeah. Because people want to see themselves reflected in that thing that they aspire to be. And so if I'm looking for a security job, and every time I turn the page or I go to some security company's website or whatever, the majority of the imagery I see are male faces, I'm not going to feel like I fit in there. So I think it's incumbent upon us to change that picture. Why is it a problem if every security officer in a picture is a woman? Yeah. It's not a problem if every security officer in a picture is a man.
It's very true.
So I don't understand why that's a problem. We've been trying for decades to impress upon everyone that security does not equate to brute strength.
Right.
It's a combination of skills, and whether you're male or female makes no difference whatsoever. And so I think imagery is important in everything. And we play a role in that, like she said, what we portray on our social media pages, what we portray on our website, how we talk about security, the stories that we share, who do they involve? Are they mostly involving men that we're highlighting, or are we making it a point to ensure that we're being inclusive? Even in our marketing, I don't know, maybe the way that we're recruiting, we're not focusing on, should we be recruiting women differently than we're recruiting men? Should we be looking in a different place to recruit women? I know a lot of the females that we employ are single mothers, wow. And so do we take that into consideration in the way that we offer our jobs and our benefits and, and things like that? Are we really looking at the demographic, of the people that we want to employ? And are we providing them a platform that they can work in, and so I think a lot of women end up in certain types of service industries because it's the industry that gives them the most flexibility. Right. I can set my schedule if I work in a restaurant that has breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I can work my kids' school and all of that around that, but if I'm stuck into a specific shift where I always have to show up at this time and there's no change in that, and these are structured shifts and I have to work this many days or I can't get the job, then I think that limits women in a lot of cases more than men, and sometimes I've seen it since I've been working on the contract side that there's an industry standard in how security scheduling is done, right. And I just want to blow that up. I'm like, why does it have to be that way? Just because that's easy doesn't mean it has to be that way. That's not conducive to everybody's life. So I think that a lot of those things, it's broader than just, oh, girls, come work for us. We have to give them a platform that allows it to work in their lives. And I think overall, as a country in America, I don't know so much about Canada, but, we don't do that good, with that overall. Yeah. But I think it's incumbent upon each of us as, for me, particularly as an executive with PalAmerican, it's my job to look at, are we being inclusive and are we allowing a platform that makes everyone feel welcome, and to continue to recognize that we haven't figured it all out and we need to strive to do better.
And I think some of it also going off of that, Anjanette, and also what Simran was saying, I think we can be ambassadors, and I'm not giving us any more clout than anyone else. I just think we as women,
sure.
My entire career, whether it be in the public sector or now in private sector, when I tell people what I do, I'm in security, I'm in corrections, many times with females, the first response I get from them is, oh, I could never do that.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And my response back is always, why not?
Yeah.
And I kind of put it back on them, and they're like, well, and that just goes to what you're saying, Anjanette. They have this perception of security, of law enforcement, of whatever it might be, that you are the brute strength, or that you must be able to, run 1,000,000 miles, or whatever it might be. So I kind of put it right back on them when they say that to me. I take it as a compliment. Thank you, but why couldn't you do it? And,
right. Good
and
point,
that opens up that conversation to, oh, well, I couldn't do this. Well, actually, can you talk? Can you communicate?
Do you have compassion?
Do you have compassion? And when I start talking about those skills, they're like, well, yeah, I have 8 kids. I'm like, then you can be working in a jail. Let me tell you what. Yes. Right?
If you raised 8 kids, you can work any security job there is.
Exactly. And it's just turning that narrative to like, oh my gosh, you guys don't realize the skills we use.
Yeah.
Yes.
Functioning adults use every single day. It's just
right.
just opening that conversation. And I just think the more that we get out there, like Simran said, and we do these types of things, just let people know that, first of all, it's a career for anyone.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities within, whether it's healthcare, like Anjanette said, or more in the campus or school settings or anything, or, mobile patrol, if you like to be moving. I mean, there's so many different opportunities. Find your strength, use that, and see if it's for you.
Well, not only that, but I mean, security is so vast. We've got some people who they don't want to have interaction with other human beings. They're the loner person. We got a site that all you do is watch this thing. You're responsible for securing stuff, not people,
right.
And your job is to make sure the people stay out. We have jobs for those people. And then, some people they love to be around other people and they like to be the one that's always helping. Healthcare is perfect for that kind of person. I want to help you. If you're into more of the police type work, well, then, there's mobile patrol and there's other things that will take you more in that direction as well. Yeah. So security is just a vast industry, and there's some women will find more comfort in one part of security than another, but that doesn't mean all women will. Some women do very well in healthcare, some women don't. Some men do very well in healthcare and some don't. it's not about that. It's not about the gender. It's about, what you bring to the table. Everybody has a different capacity, and some people just have more of a capacity for the kind of patience that is required when you're dealing with people who need to be where they are, but need to not be acting the way they are. And that's a very different kind of setting than you're acting up in a bar and I'm just going to throw you out.
Right.
Different type of security officer, different skill set.
For sure. And you were mentioning that, Anjanette, about some things that you're good at, some things you aren't. I want to touch on what has been your guys's one of your biggest struggles throughout your career. Trying to implement something, or even having to do your extra homework just to be respected and that type of thing. Like, tell me about each of you, what you would say would be one of your biggest struggles throughout your career. Simran, why don't you go first?
I think for me personally, it was just trying to get my footing and understanding what kind of value I could bring to such a vast industry itself. And I think that it didn't take me very long right off the bat, but I think I think when you first come in and you have people that have so much experience and have been police officers or corrections officers or PIs in the past and have been in security for a very long time, because that's the one thing I noticed is the men that have been in security have been doing it for their entire lives. Yeah. And so you come in there that you automatically, it's not it's very known that your experience is lacking compared to somebody else who's been in the industry for 30, 40 years, and you get that intimidation. But I think that the best thing I could do is I used to kind of just latch onto those people who have had the experience for so many years and be able to kind of learn their experiences, and just like how we're sharing our experience now, that I wish that I am going to be able to do this 20 years from now. I'm now kind of going to those people and seeing what was your experience over the last little while, whether they may be male or female, and kind of grow on that, and to then be able to then share it with other people. Even though I've only been in the industry for 4 years, even now that are officers that are coming in, for me to kind of showcase, to say, this is what this industry can provide you, and this is, as a female, is what you can do. And it doesn't matter about, it's not a matter of strength or whatnot. There's so many different qualities that go into security that are so impactful. And I think that we need to get away from that initial, that it's all just physical force. That is not the case, especially with the type of industries that we're involved in, different type of verticals. We're in retail, we're in post-secondary, we're in healthcare. So it requires a different type of compassion and empathy, because we are, again, protecting people's lives and assets. And the best way we can do that is to show that we're a valuable member of the community. So I think that, yes, again, it is the overall kind of, men can do this and women can do this, but that in this industry is not the case. And once we get over that initial intimidation, I think that our percentage of women working in this industry will significantly go up, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Heather? What has been your biggest struggle, I guess, throughout your career?
I would say unintended bias. The people who shoot me down off the bat because I'm a female, those are easy to identify. Yeah. It's the ones who maybe it's because of their upbringing or their surroundings. And I'm not just saying men. I've had females be unintended bias against me, and, sometimes when in the industry, if a colleague or someone from another company, a female, maybe makes a mistake or does something that's maybe a little out of not something I would do, to hear other people demean women for that. They're like, she did that, dumb chick, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, we collectively as a female took a step back because of this female doing something dumb. It's like, we're not all lumped together. We don't lump men all together. A guy can do something stupid and it's because it's him, and not because the male, the male gender is stupid, right? No. And so it's just running into those unintended bias, and it's really difficult. And sometimes, depending on where you're at in the country, in the state, and wherever it might be, that can be a little bit more difficult. And you have to kind of combat that you kind of come at it the same way, but often it's harder to identify at first. Because again, they're not right up in front saying, hey, I'm not listening to you because you're female.
Right.
It's throwing other obstacles in your way that you maybe don't understand at first. Like, oh my gosh, why am I having to do X, Y, Z? This seems pretty clear, but okay, I'll do X, Y, Z. So, you know, it can make our jobs a little bit more difficult. And at times frustrating, you know, because you know that, gosh, if they would just take away, you know, what they're seeing, and just let's look at the product as the product, you know, and go from there. We could, you know, we could move forward a lot quicker. So I would just say that unintended bias.
For sure. And Anjanette, what about you?
Yeah, and to piggyback on what Heather said there about it can be more intense depending on where you are in the country. I am there. You know, so I grew up in the deep South, you know, and it's that, you know, I mean, it didn't seem a thing to me growing up until it started to impact me, and that I had this realization, you know, that people feel like there's a place, there's a thing for everybody, you know, a compartment that everyone fits into. The men went into the oil field, and, you know, women became school teachers, and, you know, women aren't clergy. And, you know, there are even people that I've seen, you know, interviewed deep in the South that don't believe women should be able to run for president. You know, so it's like, that's just, you know, it's like she said, it's those unintentional, they don't intend to be biased or discriminatory. They just are, because they grew up, it was always that way for them. That's how it always was, you know, and it's it's part of the same thing with race in the South, you know. It's like, that's just how some people, it was always like that, you know. Older, my grandparents, long gone, older people who'd be 100 now, they didn't see the offense in some of the things they said or did, because that's just how, that's all they ever saw. Right. You know, and so I see that a lot in some small pockets here, you know, still in the South, that there's just this place for women to be, you know, and it is. You know, I'm not going to change a whole small town all by myself, but I am going to be me, you know. And I've kind of adapted this, you do you, you know, and I'll do me, you know, and we can coexist. And, you know, and you have to do that, you know, to be able to survive. I can't allow myself to continue to be offended or be caught up in your problem with me. All I can do is figure out where I can exist in a place where I'm heard, I'm valued, and I'm welcomed. And, you know, I can truly say, you know, that PalAmerican has provided that for me. I loved my last job. And there were moments in time where I had, you know, 2 out of those 3, you know, but I never felt like I achieved, you know, everything. Like I was really valued for what I brought to the table, and I was really heard, and I was really included, you know, at a level that I felt like I had achieved. And so I've never once in my any interaction with a single individual that has to do with Paladin or PalAmerican felt like the fact that I was a woman mattered, you know, at not one time. Now, you know, interactions with people outside of the company, not so much, you know, but, you know, we can't control that. But, you know, and that is important to me at this point in my career. You know, I don't need to capitulate anymore in order, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I mean, that's not to try to be cocky or anything, but it's like, I've been doing this for a really long time. And, you know, women don't normally do this, but I'm 55 years old, you know, so I'm at a point in my life where I get to choose what I want to do now. I don't just have to take a job because it's the only job I can get. And so I choose to be where I am. And I feel very privileged that they allow me to continue to be here. And I hope they continue to allow me to be here for a while, because I do feel included and valued. And I hope that because of the position I'm privileged to be in, that I can extend that to other women in our industry.
Yeah, that's so well said. It really, I don't know, it connected with me, and so I hope it connects with everyone that's listening too. I have a million more questions, but I know we have to wrap it up. So final thing I just wanted to ask you guys is, just your top tip for women applying or trying to get into an industry that maybe is more male dominated. Simran, do you want to go first?
I think, again, taking the bias out of it, I think that women, I think, have come a long, long way. I know that there is still the bias there, but I think that, for the younger girls that are in school and trying to figure out what exactly that they want to do, I think it's our responsibility just to kind of educate them to say, there isn't anything in this world that you cannot do. There's nothing that you're physically unable to do or anything like that. So if there is something that you really, really enjoy, you want to get into law enforcement, don't ever think that there is something that is blocking your path, because at the end of the day, we've gotten there, right? And we have gotten there just with our own dedication and our confidence in ourselves and our abilities in order to get there. So I don't really think that, I think some women tend to limit themselves, and they try to make up these other different excuses as to why they shouldn't do it. But I think when we're doing something like this, it kind of allows women to gain that confidence to be able to kind of move forward and join these industries that are a little bit more male dominated. And men aren't scary, right? They're not scary. It's just something that's kind of, we feel it. It's just something that we grew up with, but we can break that barrier for sure.
Yeah, well said. Heather, what about you?
Same lines. You can do it. Like, not to steal from Nike. I didn't get their permission, but just do it. No, I've seen in my career, females, males as well, but females who I wasn't sure if they'd succeed, and they did. And then I saw the others, females who I thought for sure would succeed, and they didn't. Yeah. It's not about that cookie cutter person. If we were all the same, that would be a horribly boring life, right? So exactly. Each person is unique and dynamic for a reason, and it's all about what your desires are. And if it's something that any industry, if you think, I might like that, just go try and do it, because nothing is going to be an obstacle that your effort can't get you past. So don't let the intimidation of a career being male dominated be a reason that you don't try something, because it's only a block in your mind and not in real life. Get out here and try it.
Well, yeah, and you and Anjanette both touched on it. You can't change the world if you're not different, right? If you're the same as everyone else, then you can't. You will succeed, but not as much as you could as if you were your own self. So, Anjanette, what about you for any tips for women?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is you have to be you. It's like you can't transform yourself into the image that you think someone else wants you to be in order to get a job. That will cripple you, and you will not be successful. So we as women have to embrace what we are as women. We are special. We are different. That does not make us less than. It brings something different to the table, that is important. If men could do everything, the world would only have men. But that is not how it was designed. It was designed to have all of these differences because that's what's required for us to work together. And so when we all embrace the fact that you need an inclusive team, you need the skill set that may be different that a woman brings to the table than men bring to the table, and that sometimes they're going to be able to do certain things better than you because of their life experiences, and what they've had to overcome in their own lives. So I say to women out there, embrace it. Embrace your womanhood, and use that. I interviewed a woman today and it was lovely. Yeah. She'd never worked in a security job that was the kind of security job we're looking for. So she was the stuff watcher, securing the property, but she'd never been in a healthcare position where there's all this conflict with people. But then she started talking about raising children. Darling, you've done this. You've raised children, you have had this conflict and you have learned how to mitigate this, and so we had a long discussion about that. And sure enough, it's a person that knows how to have that de-escalating kind of conversation and be compassionate and hear what the other person is saying, and not just, no, it's got to be my way or the highway. So I think my biggest advice to women is don't try to to position yourself as I'm just as good as a man, so I can do this job. Embrace the fact that I am a woman, and because of that, I can do this job, and let me tell you why. And use those advantages that we bring to the table. Oftentimes, I could send a man in who just escalated the situation. I sent a woman in afterwards that de-escalated the situation like that. You know, you need all of those skills, and we have to embrace what it is that we bring to the table.
For sure. Well, it's been so much fun talking to all of you guys. I've learned a lot from all of your guys' situations and backgrounds and careers. And like I said, I have a million other questions, but you know, we've gone way over our time. So I really appreciate your time. It was great to learn more about the industry and hear more about your guys' successes and struggles that you've each had. Yeah, you've done such a good job on spotlighting how rewarding a career in security can be. So if anyone else that is listening is interested in joining our team, you can visit our careers pages on both Paladin and the PalAmerican websites. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Christina.
Having us.